Good morning, and thank y'all for coming out today. We just completed a meeting of the Unified Command Group, and we began to assess the damage from Hurricane Zeta. I can tell you that those damage assessments actually started yesterday evening and continued throughout the night, but really it's when the sun comes up and you can see better that you get a better feel for just how much damage was done across what area. And in just a few minutes, we're going to leave and fly down to Terrebonne Parish to meet with officials from Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish. After that meeting, I will leave and fly over Grand Isle on the way to New Orleans. At the Lakefront Airport, I will meet with parish officials from a number of other parishes, and then we're working to leave there and actually fly back to Grand Isle and be able to land because it appears that the most catastrophic damage was in the Grand Isle area. Hurricane Zeta, as you know, made landfall yesterday right around 4 p.m. near Cocodrie, an extremely strong Category 2. In fact, 1 mile per hour from being a Category 3. And we're very thankful that it made landfall with a forward speed of 24 miles per hour, which is very fast for a hurricane, and then the speed actually accelerated after that. As a result, the rainfall totals was limited, and the flood damage that we had really came from surge right along the coast. There were no locations other than Grand Isle where water caused any levee failures, and certainly no levees were overtopped. And so the levee system performed extremely well in southeast Louisiana. Because this was primarily a wind event, as was predicted, there are lots of power outages across southeast Louisiana. Currently, it's about 469,000 homes and businesses without power. The peak was 531,000 power outages. Sadly, the Department of Health confirmed our first Zeta-related death. It was a 55-year-old man in Orleans Parish who died from electrocution because of a down power line. So obviously this is sad, it's tragic, and certainly we ought to offer our prayers to the family of that gentleman. At the same time, we need to make sure people take very seriously the threat posed by down power lines, all of which should be regarded as live with electricity. No one should try to move or in any way deal with these power lines. Let's leave that to the linemen and the line crews that are out and about southeast Louisiana today. Obviously, the wind damage knocked a lot of trees down, a lot of utility poles. There was some limited damage to transmission lines, but most of it appears to be to the distribution lines, the normal utility poles that you would see on the side of the roads. Power will be out for a considerable portion of southeast Louisiana for some period of time. It won't be until later today, until there's a more complete damage assessment, that a timeline can be developed for power restoration, but we know that this is a very high priority. I think 96% of Plaquemines Parish right now is without electricity. It's about 2/3 of Orleans Parish, and more than 80% of Jefferson Parish and some of the other parishes. The National Guard has more than 1,940 guardsmen activated in support of emergency operations. Urban search and rescue operations are underway. They're also engaging in route clearance, but also delivering generators and taking additional requests. And we are awaiting requests for points of distribution so that in those areas where they're going to be without electricity for a few days, we expect that we'll be delivering food and water, ice, tarps, those sorts of things. The one levee breach was reported in Grand Isle. The Burrito levee on the Gulf side had 3 breaches. CPRA is now down with local officials, including Mayor Carmadale and the Corps of Engineers, assessing those breaches, and they are working to make repairs just as quickly as possible. We do have pumps on site in Grand Isle to assist in dewatering Grand Isle. CPRA is tracking 689 gates across coastal Louisiana. 319 gates remain closed. That's up from 290 that were closed yesterday. A number of floodgates have begun reopening this morning, and that will continue as conditions allow. There are currently 22 state roadways that are closed due to water or debris. Crews are out removing the debris where it is safe to do so, and as you know, we use professional linemen and their crews in order to remove power lines. But our DOTD crews are out assessing the damage, and there could be more road closures. They're also doing inspections where inspections are warranted, because we know, for example, in the Lafitte area that there were vessels that were dislodged by the wind and actually collided with the Kerner Bridge there. And so there are inspections taking place across Louisiana as well. Right now, we do ask people not to go out on the roadways. It is exactly the wrong time to go sightseeing, because search and rescue is underway. First responders need to be able to respond to calls that are coming in as we speak. We also have a considerable number of down power lines and so forth. So please stay off the roads. When you do need to get out and about, you should check 511la.org to get the latest information on road closures so that you can plan your route. As of this morning, 3,394 Louisianans are being sheltered. Only 76 of these are Zeta evacuees, and they are all sheltering in local shelter facilities. None of those 76 are at the state level. Depending on power restoration and the extent of damage, that number could be higher or lower. Tonight, we just don't know how many additional people, if any, will need sheltering. But individuals who do need sheltering should look primarily to those parish shelters. So call your parish offices of emergency preparedness for sheltering information. The remainder of those Louisianans who are sheltering are doing so because of Laura and Delta, and those numbers basically did not change from what I gave you yesterday. With so many people without power and with the cooler weather, I anticipate that there will be a lot of households out there using generator power this evening and maybe for the next few days. Please do so safely. Make sure that that generator is at least 20 feet away from your home in a well-ventilated area. Make sure that you don't place that generator inside the home, inside a garage or a crawl space. Don't put it underneath a window, a vent, or close to a door. And also make sure that you allow that generator to cool down for at least 20 minutes before you refuel it in order to avoid having a fire. If you're using a heater, because we're going to have below average temperatures over the next few days, if you're using a heater, please make sure you keep it away from flammable material. Due to Zeta, the drive-through COVID test sites operated by the National Guard will be closed in the following parishes today: New Orleans, Baton Rouge, these areas: New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Acadiana, the North Shore. We expect all of these sites to be back up tomorrow, and we certainly don't want to turn off COVID testing any longer than is absolutely necessary. So we've got a lot of work to do, and all of this is in addition to the ongoing work because of the public health emergency with COVID-19 and the recovery efforts with respect to Hurricanes Laura and Delta. We do appreciate all the work by first responders, by our local partners at the parish and municipal level, and we also appreciate the cooperation we've already received from the federal government, particularly from FEMA, and we will have FEMA individuals with us traveling to the affected area today. And we do anticipate that tomorrow, Pete Gaynor, the administrator from FEMA, will be in the state and will be in southeast Louisiana. I look forward to meeting with him as well. So let's be diligent in meeting the needs of our fellow Louisianans today. Let's do so mindful of the COVID-19 public health emergency and compliant with all of the mitigation measures that we've been talking about, including wearing a mask, washing your hands frequently, physical distancing when you're around people not from the immediate household, and certainly staying home when you're sick. With that, I'll take a few questions. Yes, ma'am?
Governor, when you talk about urban search and rescue efforts, are there specific areas where there are known people to be trapped in their homes or needing rescue?
Well, I don't know of anybody trapped in their homes presently, but we know that we have to go and search. And the closer you get to the coast, the more destructive the damage is to structures, and that includes homes. And so we always go and check on those homes, whether we received a call from them or not, because if someone's injured in their home, they may not be able to get to their phone. And so that's just something that we always do. We do a primary search, and then we come back with a secondary search later. And I will tell you, it's been very difficult to get search and rescue assets into Grand Isle because Highway 1 was flooded. There was an oyster vessel that was actually on the interstate, on the highway, that was blocking traffic. And it appears that in the very near future, if it hadn't already happened, we'll be able to get some people by roadway into Grand Isle. I instructed the National Guard earlier today to fly some assets into Grand Isle in order to do the search and rescue. We do know that yesterday, actually while the winds were still blowing from the hurricane, we were able, and I don't know exactly which agency, so I don't know if this was a state agency or local agency, responded to a mobile home in La Rose that had been overturned. 2 individuals were in that mobile home. Both had to be transported to a hospital, one with broken bones. And so that search and rescue actually happened yesterday while the storm was still passing. And so we don't know exactly what the need is out there today, and that's why you always go out and you do that primary search. And you don't only go to the places where you receive calls for help, because if you do that, you're liable to miss a lot of people who really need some assistance. Yes, sir.
Hey, Governor, so how do you expect these outages to affect election procedures?
Yeah.
And what are you guys putting in place to sort of mitigate those difficulties?
Well, it's too early to know for sure. What I can tell you is we have an election task force that we stood up, primarily looking at Southwest Louisiana to make sure that we had alternate polling places as necessary if the normal polling locations were out of service because of damage or because of the lack of electricity. Last week, we actually stood that election task force back up as it relates to Delta. And I say last week, it was over the weekend. And so the Secretary of State, the clerks of court are talking to the GOSEP folks here, but also with the Public Service Commission and the electric companies that provide electricity to that area. So they've identified already the polling places without electricity, the clerks of court that don't currently have electricity, and the registrars of voters who don't have electricity. And those are going to be priority locations. And as we get closer to Tuesday, obviously a determination is going to have to be made whether they're going to be able to power those locations back up or not. And that has to be done in advance of Tuesday far enough so that if it can't happen, that the voters who would typically vote at those locations can be given instructions to vote elsewhere. So all that's going to be playing out today, and I can tell you there will be there's already been communications this morning, there will be another call this afternoon. So the voters in Southeast Louisiana, where you don't currently have electricity, and especially where you don't have electricity and a significant amount of structural damage, you need to be paying attention to the Secretary of State and to local officials, because if you're going to be voting at an alternate location, that will be communicated to you soon. Obviously, we're hoping to minimize the number of voters who actually cannot vote at the normal locations where they would vote. So there's a lot of work left to be done. It's just too early to be more specific than what I was just able to do. Yes, sir.
Do you have any sense yet of whether the power outages that you're looking at
days or weeks?
Yeah, well, we don't believe it's weeks, and I hesitate to offer any guesstimate on this right now. It doesn't look like there's a tremendous amount of damage to the transmission lines. Those are the lines that are hardest to repair, especially if you have the very large towers that are damaged or destroyed and have to be replaced. It appears that the vast majority of damage are on the distribution side, and again, these are the utility poles that you would typically see on the side of a road, and they can be replaced much more quickly. We do have several thousand linemen that are in the state and in southeast Louisiana working starting today, and we're going to be bringing back additional line crews that had actually gone to Texas and elsewhere in order to deal with an ice storm and the impact that it had on electricity services in those states. So we're going to be bringing in more people to assist with the restoration efforts, and I would believe that sometime late today you're going to have much more information coming forth from the major service providers in this area, which are Entergy, New Orleans, and CLECO. Now, there are some others like Washington, St. Tammany, and the St. Tammany region, but those are the three providers that have the most customers in this area. I don't yet have a report for Homa because it's unregulated by the PSC, and the numbers that we got today didn't reflect what outages there might be in Homa. Hopefully there aren't any. I just don't know yet, but I'll be down in Terrebonne Parish soon and we'll have more information about Homa. Any other questions before we take off? Look, thank you all very much. I don't know what the press availability will be tomorrow. It may be in New Orleans because I intend to be down there with Administrator Gaynor. And I think we'll have a press availability in New Orleans today after I meet with local officials at the Lakefront Airport early this afternoon. But we really do need you all to continue to communicate with the people of Louisiana the need to be safe and cautious. Oddly enough, it isn't the storms that typically produce the most injuries and fatalities. It's the cleanup efforts, it's the use of generators, it's the carbon monoxide poisoning, it's the electrocution that comes from power lines. And so now is the time to be very, very cautious out there and make sure that we are taking care of one another and that we do so mindful that we're in a COVID environment. So thank all of you very much, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. And thank you, ma'am.